Welcome to So Many Questions, the podcast where curiosity meets leadership. Join host Rebecca Goodman-Stephens, CEO of law firm Moses Singer, as she sits down with bold thinkers and thought leaders to discuss what motivates and drives their leadership styles and decisions. From candid stories to aha moments, we go behind the scenes to find out what really drives them. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our podcast of So Many Questions. I'm the host, Rebecca Goodman-Stephens, the CEO of Moses and Singer. And I'm super excited today to have Shireen Hilal with us. So many questions for her. She is an amazing leader, the CEO of Maior Consulting, a consulting firm that really helps professional services firms drive growth, efficiencies, scale, all of that good stuff. And I'm really excited to be having this conversation today. So welcome to the podcast, Shireen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for the conversation.
Yeah, I've so many questions. So let's get into it. First of all, I really wanted to ask you, how did you come up with this idea? What led you to want to build out your own business? And yeah, really, what was the origin of all of this?
Good question. So I myself practiced law for 10 years. So I was a litigator in AmLaw 50 firms. And, you know, what's interesting about big law, maybe had I started at a smaller firm, I would have felt different. But big law is not a lot of court time. It's not a lot of sort of hand-to-hand combat.
It's not Ally McBeal.
No, it's very slow-moving discovery disputes, moving paper, and I am by nature a very quick person, and just found I was constantly kind of like bored and waiting for the next thing, even in fast-paced litigation, right?
Yeah.
So what I really loved, and the piece I always dug into was, but wait a minute, shouldn't the marketing materials look better? What are we doing about bringing in new clients? What's really the value proposition? How are we pricing this? How profitable are the engagements? All of that. And when you're the person who enjoys that in that environment, and most people don't, and why should they? You didn't go to law school to do those things. That work sort of naturally gravitates to you. So I kind of hit a inflection point 10 years in where I said, look, if that's what I really want to do, I need to take myself off of the partnership track and go do it, right? Put my ego aside that says, you deserve to have this, you've done this for so many years, and go do what I want to do. So I first went to BDO and helped them with sort of pivoting and building up their consulting division, then went to KPMG and helped them with strategy and executing on that strategy, then was the COO of a national law firm. But what kept happening throughout was, you know, again, I'm still trying to move fast, and especially in enterprise firms, they're not built for agility. And in fact, it could be dangerous to go too fast. And these are also risk-averse businesses by nature, right? Accountants and lawyers. So I finally realized if I ever want to go at the speed I want to go, I think I'm going to have to build something myself. And
Yeah.
this is fun. I now work with boutique and mid-sized firms. I have more than one client, of course, which means as one client is sort of chewing and digesting, I move over to another. And I'm not sort of trying to always pull people along with me anymore.
Yeah, you're kind of focusing all your energy on just getting things done, and you can kind of then allocate your time according to who's ready to work. Is kind of
Right.
what it sounds like.
So it works
Yeah.
better. And it's also, these are smaller firms that they're ready, right? Like, you don't hire me unless you're ready to change something and move in a different way.
Yeah.
So for me, that's also a piece of the fun. It's very different than being, and you know this, embedded as an executive where some things are moving quick, some things are run and maintain, right, as they should be. The run and maintain operations doesn't really excite me.
Not a passion.
No.
I can relate to that. And I think
Yeah.
as you were speaking, I think some of those bigger firms, the fact that they're not nimble and kind of thinking differently, I also see that as a risk, as much as it's a risk sometimes to move quickly. So it'll be interesting to see where the that industry goes. But to your point of people hire you because they know that things are going to kind of change, how have you thought about your branding and being super explicit about kind of what they're going to get? I'm always super impressed about your content and how much substance there is that's put out there, because you don't often see that. So I wanted to ask that question, like how are you thinking about your own branding and your business as it relates to people understanding what they're going to get?
Yeah, I'm not shy about being very clear, to your point, on what you're going to get. And so, for example, the second you land on Maior's homepage, the first thing you see is when good enough isn't good enough. And I think that immediately speaks to some people and probably says to others, I'm not sure that's for me.
I don't get it. Yeah.
Right. And that's okay,
Yeah.
right? It's actually really helpful. It self-selects folks out of the process.
Right.
It's, if you're really here to be different and show up and try new things, I'm the right place, and this consultancy is the right place. Even the name Maior, it means bigger in Latin. And that's because I want to attract firms that think bigger about how to serve their clients and their employees, right? And what can you be doing, and what does bigger mean for you? So I think that's an important piece. I think you also brought up a great point, which is the thought leadership. For me, that's a huge piece of my brand. I think if you're doing something different, you have a real obligation to the market to share those ideas, not just with your clients, but to give those ideas out pretty freely. And that's what being a leader is, right? Actually showing a path and giving those ideas and letting others come along, whether they hire you or not. What I've found is it's really helped with lead generation because it gives firms a very good idea. Oh, here's what it is to work with Shireen and Maior. Here's real frameworks and strategies. Here's case studies of ways she's done it. Again, there could be a firm that says, that's not really my cup of tea. But for me, that's been a big piece of how I've generated the business and also how I've been clear on who we are and what we do.
I think that's excellent. It really does triage, to your point, the people that really want to work with you, the way that you want to work with them, and kind of really being clear about that from the get-go. And we've spoken a lot about that, like how much content goes out, and the concept of, it's great to have the idea, but it's not because someone else sees your idea that they can necessarily execute on it. It's like that whole, take my recipe for a meal and produce it. And also something that I love about what you do is you don't just have one framework that you're kind of deploying and kind of rolling out. It could completely be tailored or completely be just totally different approach depending on the client and what you're seeing. So
yeah, and it actually has to be because I think some of the biggest failure in consulting, frankly, is overuse of cookie cutter frameworks and almost being a consultant's consultant, right? I think the difference is, and you would understand this, when you've actually had to be an executive in an organization and live and breathe the changes and keep iterating and tweaking, you understand what works and what doesn't, and you understand why, well, that worked at BDO, but it didn't work at KPMG, but it did work at that law firm. And so it kind of comes down to the people, right? Who actually has to execute and live with this, and how do I build it for them? And thinking too about, change doesn't come easy to anyone, let alone in these industries.
Right.
So how do you create it so you almost put a layup right at the front?
Yeah.
So that the team can get a win under their belt. And keep building momentum, as opposed to let's start with the hardest chunk first and watch them fail.
It's super important and I learned that actually from someone on my team in my prior role, just to really celebrate success and just having a quick win, something that really the team can we did this and we could kind of get it done. It gives confidence too going into that next phase, especially if it's big change. So I think that makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
And having those champions and critics, right? Like we've talked about
Yes.
that often firms want to sort of ignore the critics. I say put them in your pilot program.
Yeah.
Let them own it. Let them
Mm-hmm.
be the ones that stress test the ideas, because they're going to come up with 18 contrarian
The proposals,
responses.
right.
Yeah, good.
Which is perfect.
Totally.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think it's oftentimes we do kind of want to protect, this is the idea, we want to kind of roll it out. We don't want anyone to critique it, but it's by critiquing it that you get to a better idea. And I think being able to do that as leaders, I mean, I love that you do that too. You just get better buy-in and you come to a better outcome. That might be something that we've missed from the beginning, right? That really we didn't see coming. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And it also reminds me of other discussions that we've had about the concept of not just looking in the market on what everyone else is doing, that can lead to really strategic convergence and everyone doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And how to think differently. And I love your focus that's a lot more just focus on your clients, right? Like,
yeah, I have a saying, I say this frequently to my clients, so if any of them are listening, they'll be like, oh, that again.
Here she goes.
I always say obsess about your clients and forget about your competitors. Look, the easiest path to mediocrity is doing what everybody else is doing. And so you're, in fact, lucky if you can just land in the middle by copying others. But I get it, right? There is a very natural instinct, that firm just opened a Houston office. Oh, they're now talking about digital assets and Bitcoin. Maybe we need to be in that conversation. Mm-hmm. Even Moses and Singer just launched a podcast. Do we need a podcast? It's easy to have FOMO and also say, if it's working for them, won't it work for us? But again, that's a way to fall into the middle. And so the easiest North Star is always to figure out, what are my clients doing and what do they need? And so that can guide, do I open a Houston office? Well, I don't know. Are they in Houston? Do they need to talk about digital assets or do they not care and that's not a piece of their business?
Right.
Are they going to listen to the podcast? Is that something they care about? And where are they showing up and what do they need? And that can guide way better what practice area you build, how you should price, what thought leadership pieces you should put out. And I even think, I don't know if you've thought about doing this. This is the sort of thing I know you and I would probably talk about naturally over lunch, a podcast or not. Like, what about having a client advisory board even?
Yeah, I love it. I think the idea of knowing what the competition's doing is a great data point. Like, it's a data point.
Yeah.
It's, just knowing what the competition's, how they're thinking, it gives you intel on the client base, on the industry, where the market's going. But I agree with you. Like, that shouldn't be the direction to kind of strive towards. Sometimes it might be even we're going to do the exact opposite because of X, Y, Z. I love the idea of a client advisory board. I love also just client feedback and having those very transparent discussions. And that's something oftentimes I've seen firms have concerns about. I don't know what your experience has been. Like, do you get pushback on getting that intel from the clients? Like,
yeah, I do. Although I'll say, I think most of the firms that hire me, you've already sort of selected yourself into a group that's willing to do things a little different. But I really encourage, and I have one firm, for example, a mid-sized law firm based in New York, where I helped the managing partner to sort of structure royalty to royalty conversations, right? So CEO or GC to managing partner with, let's really dig in and ask, where are you investing in the next 36 months? What are you all looking at in the market? What are the biggest pain points you're having? Where else do you need help? And by doing that with their 10 largest clients, that was the roadmap. That's how we built the strategy.
Makes a ton of sense.
Right. And of course it's going to be more resonant. And by the way, here's also where you can even ask. Let's say you want to try something new, like alternative fee pricing, and you're like, we've done a couple of those and they weren't very profitable. We're not sure where to start. Start with your current clients, not with new prospects, and be transparent. we'd like to pilot this and try it with you.
I can imagine clients being quite flattered, actually.
Right. And will you give us
discussion.
feedback? And
Yeah.
right, tell them like we value
yeah.
you.
Creates a stickiness, right? That we're getting
Yeah.
feedback from the clients. No, I really like that. And I look forward to pushing that more too in our industry. I think it makes a lot of sense. And
It does.
yeah. From your perspective, I'm curious to know, when you go in and you're working with a firm,
Yeah.
what attributes are you looking for in leaders to know they're going to be champions for what you're doing? Like, what are you looking for? Are there specific traits that you look for? What characteristics are you kind of like, will this person be the right person to spearhead this? Or, do you have different ideas of roles for people? How do you look at that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I hate to say it. Some of it comes down to gut.
I'm dying to
Some
know.
of it comes up to gut feel,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh.
I meet people and I know the way I met you, and I'm like, oh, that's my people.
We knew.
I sometimes just I get the sense it's how they react and how excited they are about new ideas. One of the things I do for a new firm is, as part of the sort of scoping and pricing process, I do a presentation where I start with, here's what I've heard. Here's where I see you have unique qualities and values. Here's what I see as the challenges. And I use that time to stress test some ideas first. If I get a lot of pushback right there on, well, I mean, we're not going to try that, and we're not going to do this, and we're not. All right, you know what? I think we all know I may not be right for you.
Yeah.
If I get a little more, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of that, but I'm willing to think about it. Or it's okay to say these few things we're not into.
Yeah.
But if everything is met with resistance,
You kind of know.
that tells me. I also like to ask things about timeline. Also,
That's a good one.
who internally is my touch point for actually getting this done? Because usually it's the managing partner who's hiring me. But that person's busy.
Yeah.
So who's my day-to-day? Do you have somebody who I can go to keep this moving?
Who's not going to be threatened by this process
Right.
potentially,
Right.
or who's going to be actually helpful? And
So those are some
Those
of
are
the
good points.
indicia.
yeah.
I would say I got it wrong once. So I've had one engagement where I took on a law firm. It was to help them with business development, for partners that frankly just weren't getting it together to go to market and go out and get new clients and weren't sure where to start. And where I failed them was not asking enough questions up front around who's going to hold them accountable and what happens if they don't follow through.
I love an example of like something that didn't work, because there's so much you can learn from it and kind of pivot going forward. I'm sure that kind of informed a lot of your approach the next time you went into an engagement on BD.
It did. It also made me realize, and I get it, they were trying to be very cost conscious.
Yeah.
And so they in the beginning, when I was explaining how this engagement might work, they said, just focus here. And I should have known, I can't just focus there.
Right.
This is an ecosystem.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter how great the plan is.
Right.
We have to actually be able to execute it.
What would you have done differently? Would you have just stepped away from the engagement and said, I can't do this if it's not a holistic approach?
Yes.
Or,
And candidly, I mean, 25 to 30% of the firms that come to me, I nicely turn down. And that one was one where I took a bit of a chance. And I knew, you know what, speaking of gut, I felt a little uncomfortable with the idea of just meeting with these partners one-on-one, building individual development plans on a very tight scope, and then just letting them, unleashing them to go do it. And without digging into, well, wait a minute, like, let's talk about how this actually ties into partner comp, and how is the firm going to better support these initiatives? And if they're not doing it now, can we dig into, right? And so
sometimes it could be a symptom of you could get deeper once you get a foot in the door on the project. And sometimes it's never going to be more than this, and that won't work.
I should have pushed back on the managing partner and said, you know, I know what you're trying to do, which is you've self-diagnosed.
Yeah.
Right?
We all love doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're telling me what you think you need, but candidly, I'm not sure I can help you until I do something broader.
Makes sense.
But I get it. They thought they had identified and they were narrowly focused, but it was something where 60 days in, I had to say pencils down.
Yeah.
And I said, look, in good conscience, I can't keep charging you for something that I'm not seeing come to fruition.
Yeah, and I could see that, and it's difficult to assess that in the beginning, but
it is.
And even
it was a lesson. It was a lesson
internally for leaders. I think the takeaway from that could be, you know, even when you're internal within an organization, like how do you assess which projects to really go into and when to flag, hey, you know, this really needs to be a more holistic approach. We need to address other, you know, systemic issues within the organization before we launch this pilot or before we do X, Y, Z. So I think that's a really important message for anyone who's listening in today. I really would love to know, what's your dream client? Like if you had a magic wand and you were like, okay, I would love this type of client. Like what would that look like?
I would say my favorite projects to work on are business development and marketing related. Probably because there's just no greater feeling than chiming the bell when a new deal is brought in, right? It's just there's nothing more fun. And candidly, it's the piece I love the most about my own business is kind of like going out and swanning around and talking to people and solutioning and coming up with like the perfect price where they're like, wow, I feel the value. And I'm excited to get going. That piece for me is, I feel like it never gets old.
Yeah.
So I would say any project where I can dig in like that. I prefer to do things longer term. One of my favorite clients, it's one of the best ways to work. I think it's a mid-sized firm where I sit on the executive committee. So I attend those meetings and then help them to drive through projects between meetings that would normally sort of slip through the cracks or linger, or it's hard to find somebody who can really push that through. And you know, in firms like these too, you often have like an HR department of one, a marketing department of one. You know, these folks are like stretched very thin.
Yeah.
And so let's go do some big new thing. That sounds great, but like I already have a full plate. Right. So that's a really great one.
I think my team can relate to that if anyone's listening today. Yeah.
I think most firms are like that. So, you know, it's for them, it's really fun because I really feel part of the team. I get a piece of that without.
It's like a win-win situation, Shireen. Like I'm completely. I really love this whole project. I think it's fantastic and so impactful. I think, and it can really add. You're able to kind of piece out time that you can bring to each of these firms that really they also couldn't necessarily. Some of these firms can't necessarily invest in that level of strategic leadership themselves if it were a full-time role also, right?
Well, that's why I started the business is kind of back to almost full circle to your original question. As I was in these larger firms, I had friends leaving big law, leaving big accounting who were now, they were sitting on the executive committees or they were the managing partner of a boutique. And they were asking me, you know, like, for example, when I was COO of a law firm, it brought them 20% top line growth, 30% increase in profits per partner. They're like, how do we do that here?
Drop the mic, walk up. Yes.
Right. Like who's like, how do we take, like, what's the bite-sized version
of doing that?
Or the diet version that I can do here in my 40-person firm, in my 100-person firm. And that's when I realized, like, wow, there's not a lot of great help in the market. Yeah. And where there is good help, it's often very siloed. So it's somebody who's like a great outsourced CFO. Well, that's fabulous, but this is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so do you understand how the business is brought in, and do you have ideas on that? And are you looking at the P&L, and can you see, I'm seeing a shift in how your client base is changing. And so let's lean into that. And here's a new go-to-market strategy. That's a hard thing to ask an outsourced CFO to do.
Yeah, it's just not their role. Like it's quasi fractional CEO type services, right? Because you're bringing in the CEO type vision and strategy with that, right?
It's why I always love talking to you, because like we serve it back to each other, right? I mean, we can go from the finance side to the marketing side to the staffing to margin control. These things are all linked.
And very few people, I think, have that, because it's kind of new in the industry, right? To have these C-suite roles that are not just siloed functional roles.
Totally.
So it's definitely, it's an interesting time to be in the industry. Where do you see things going in the next few years for the law firm space or for professional services at large? Like, what are kind of the hot topics that you're focused on with your clients?
Yeah, I have, right now I'm being asked the most about alternative fee agreements. How do we really put them in without losing our shirts, right? So that's been a lot of fun. Yeah. And in fact, I've created a couple programs where firms can make more money. Yeah. You know, you got to really dig into your secret sauce and price based on what your clients need. And then you can price higher than the AmLaw 100, which brings me to, I think, the other trend I'm seeing. There's never been a better time to be a mid-size or boutique firm.
I keep saying it. I believe it.
There's never been a better time.
You see it the same way?
Yeah. Oh,
totally. For what reason would you say, like, how do you pitch it?
I mean, the jig is up. I think...
It is.
I think general counsels are very aware now that they can get the same quality. In fact, sometimes it is the same lawyers who have left 2 years ago, right? It's literally the same person in a firm where they're going to get more attention. They're going to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. They are with a firm that's willing to get creative around pricing and willing to think outside the box. It's also, these are the firms where innovation is actually happening. Yeah. It's not in big law.
No, we see that in the managing partner group, and we see, right, the mid-market firms are really the ones, you know, really leading change on AI and other topics. I mean,
I mean, I am occasionally brought in to a really large firm. Usually it's for something like one thorny issue that they just can't. They're like, how do we solve this one? Because it's not as if they don't have support, right? Yeah. They have plenty of support. Yeah. But it'll be like one thorny issue that they just can't seem to solve. So those are fun, but it's not usually innovation. Yeah. You know?
Well, to your prior point, they're such big organizations. It's difficult to really change that quickly and be that nimble also, or do you think it's something else?
It's hard. Yeah, it is. It's hard. I think as much as they like to say they are ready to be on the cutting edge and do things differently and be market leaders, truthfully, very few of them in practice, and I say this from experience having been in some of these firms, right, actually empower and enable their executives to do what needs to get done to get there. And so you can say all that, but if you're now going to tell, you know, the head of the department or the head of the firm, you know, we're waiting on global board or we're waiting. Okay, well, I think you have your answer.
Yeah, it kind of stifles that creativity a little bit. Yeah.
Totally.
Whereas the mid-market, I mean, I'm glad that you see it the same way too, because that's what I'm super excited about. It's very entrepreneurial and very nimble and very much focused.
Yeah, I mean, I even, I was in one large firm that had an innovation budget, and the way you got dollars, it was a once a year determination. Okay, so right there, like how,
just the
can you even possibly be innovative? Yeah. Under, like, is that even?
That's the kind of thing I find funny too.
Right. So where I'm like, and I was like, okay, I'm changing all of this. Yeah. You know, we're having actual like rolling
Like Shark Tank. Daily.
Yeah.
Weekly Shark Tank.
So I actually did create a Shark Tank
goodness.
committee.
Okay.
We're the same person.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So how did that go?
Oh, it was so fun. It was great. We did rolling meetings. I also didn't, before they were funding everything in, so it was like a $15 million innovation budget.
Nice.
And they would just give
the whole
some
solid stuff with that.
They would just give the whole thing out and then wait for impact, which was usually close to zero. So instead, I also stage gated funding. Okay, I'm going to fund your first stage.
See how you do.
Come back to us, tell us how it's going, and we'll give you the next tranche of funding.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I love that kind of idea. And I think there's a lot of space for that, even, startup incubators and that kind of thing in our space. So yeah, I agree. It's a super exciting time to be in our space.
It is.
What advice do you give? Like if you were to say today, managing partners of mid-market firms, if there's one thing you should be thinking about, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I can only pick one. That's so hard.
You could do, we don't, rules are flexible.
Rules are flexible. Okay, good. Rules are made to be broken.
Yeah.
I think just pay better attention to what's happening both on your own front lines and again, back to obsessing about your clients and your clients. And so one example, a firm that I work with quite a bit had a ferocious accounts receivable balance, like out of control. And actually this demonstrates the point on both fronts, employees and clients. So they brought me in for help us with the collection process. So I dug under the hood and I'm like, okay, well, first of all, have you talked to the people in billing? What have they said? Why aren't clients paying? Mm-hmm. Oh, we haven't asked them. Okay, so first of all, leave your corner office, walk downstairs,
talk to your people,
and go talk to people, and find out what's really happening.
It's funny how much insight you'll get from speaking with the
right.
teams. Yeah.
And it's funny how little you know in your boardroom.
Yeah.
Right, when you're not actually connecting the dots, and at the same time, have empathy for your clients. Because once I looked in, I said, sure, I can help you with collections, but we have to turn the faucet off here. You have a scoping problem at the beginning of your engagements. You have a communication problem during your engagements. By the way, I've looked at your time entry. I wouldn't pay a bill that looks like that. So
along the way, there's so much more that goes into
there
it.
are so many things that need to be done before we get to the end of the road where we say, let's stop work and worry about collections, right?
I think that's one of my biggest takeaways from what you're saying is like the self-diagnosis piece. Like, don't jump to a conclusion. Like, there really is a need to do an assessment first, a diagnosis, before you really jump to what you're going to do.
Well, it's called malpractice if you're a doctor and you give a prescription without like running the test, right? Yeah. At the same time, I get it. I think there's a lot of impatience for somebody getting up to speed. The way I get around that, I usually right up front when I'm working with a firm, it's a big investment for me. But right from the beginning, I do a flat fee phase where that's my chance to really learn what's going on. But Rebecca, it's more than learning what's going on. This is where I build trust with your team, right? So that when I am, for example, talking to the people in billing, when I come out with a new process for them, they're not like, well, who does she think she is?
Yeah.
No, she listened to you. She talked to all of you.
Yeah.
She got your point of view
first. You're finding solutions for their issues ultimately. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so taking that time to build the trust and really learn what's happening, it's critical. And I do invest it because I don't really make a ton of money off that piece.
That leads to the rest though, right? And like,
but it's the only way. And then we move fast, right?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And to your point on trust, I think that's huge, right? Especially when you're coming in and it's all about the people, like you were saying earlier.
These are people businesses.
100% all about the people.
Yeah, and an engaged workforce is not optional if you want a great product.
Any pointers on the people side of things when you're speaking with leaders about their employees, how to kind of best attract, retain, develop people?
Yeah. So I also like to say culture has cult in it. And so actually build buy-in and have believers. And so part of that means culture is not something to cram down from the top.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many conversations I've been in, again, in boardrooms, where folks are sitting around playing with what the values are of the company. And I'm like, I don't think it's what you say it is. It's what they say it is.
It's what they feel that it is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to
Such a good point.
co-create the culture. Let your people have a real voice. Also give them better information. All staff or town halls are oftentimes, especially in smaller firms, used on things that don't really move the dial, like emptying out the fridge on Friday. Don't forget to get your time entry. I mean, I get it. It's very tempting to want to use that time for your housekeeping and to rapid fire introduce 5 people that no one's going to remember or reach out to. But you can better use that time on things like, here's the state of the firm. Here's our strategy. Yeah. Empower people. You can't say our people are disengaged and they're not interested when you haven't told them what you're doing.
Yeah.
And have you given them an actual call to action? How do you help with that? And so, example, I had a firm that I helped with redoing kind of their quarterly town hall cadence, and we picked a thing every quarter. So one quarter it was, we're going to focus on profitability. And we literally, in that call, talked about what every single role at the firm could do to move the dial on profitability.
That's so important because then it's empowering to everyone and how their role fits into the bigger picture. Yeah.
And empower them too with context, not control, right? Like there's certain things, filing deadlines, sexual harassment training, those are not negotiable. Those are very few things. Yeah. For everything else, show them, don't tell them, and then hold them to it and reward them for it. So another example, I had a firm where we were trying to improve some of the culture issues. I gave a client delight budget to all of the assistants.
Yeah.
To all of the assistants. This is for you if there's a client that is rescheduled 3 times with one of your partners and they just seem really busy, send them a Starbucks gift card and be like, we know you're so busy and you could probably use a coffee break on us.
I love that.
If it's somebody says as you're trying to like schedule a meeting, well, we're going to be away on our wedding anniversary trip next week, so we'll have to look at the week after. Send a bottle of wine. It was a small budget, but it made them feel invested in the relationship and that they had real skin in the game. And these are my clients. These aren't just the partner's clients. These are my clients.
I think that's super important. So I had a follow-up question on the BD topic.
Yeah.
Because I'm passionate about profiles of people and like majors and minors. And do you push everyone to be all well-rounded, or do you just leave the people alone who are never going to do it? And how do you assess that? Like how do you approach people, their skills, their highest and best use, what they're going to be good at, and then maybe an example of like a BD program that really worked out super well?
Yeah, I love this topic, and we both do. So I'm glad you dug back in. I would say, first of all, it always comes down again to the people executing. And so, for example, and this is probably an obvious one, but I'd be surprised how many times I still see this. If you have a partner that's an introvert, telling them to go to 3 conferences is a terrible strategy.
Nightmare.
Right, because we know what's going to happen. They're going to stand in a corner, looking at their phone.
Turn into the corner. Right, look at the wall.
Yeah. Try to figure out how long they have to stay so they can say they went before they can just duck out and leave.
Yeah.
Even worse if they brought colleagues with them, because now they're just glued to them and they're really not going to talk to anyone, right? So it just doesn't work. you have to actually make things easy for people, especially when they're busy.
Yeah.
So a good example, I had an AmLaw 50 firm that came to me and said, we have one issue we can't solve. And so that's not my typical client, right? Because most of firms of that size have a very robust C-suite, business development team, marketing folks, they have everything. They had a securities law practice where they had hired a lot of big names from ex-government. So I'm talking like former SEC, former DOJ. They had all the credentials you would want.
I'm very interested in this topic.
I knew you would like this one. So what was interesting, I mean, first of all, they came from, most of them came from government. Some were in private practice before. These people don't know how to sell. They don't know how to sell.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And yes, they had impressive profiles, but dime a dozen in Manhattan. I mean, every high-rise building in Midtown.
We're so spoiled here.
And the financial district has a bang-up practice like this for securities law, right? So I met with the partners, first to figure out, to my point, like who are they and what excites them and what can I get them into? And look, like the truth is they love the law. They were highly academic. These were mostly guys that like to sort of be like, well, actually. So I was like, okay, how do I create a way for them to shine and bring in clients? So instead of your typical like cocktail party, somebody's up at the podium for 45 minutes. By the way, people are already tuning out at like minute 5. Awkward cocktail conversation. Instead, I created a workshop where it was still done at happy hour. We had waiter and waitress service actually coming at the tables, dropping off drinks and past hors d'oeuvres. And we broke them into groups. There was a partner at each table. And because they're an AmLaw 50, I lucked out here, right? They have the client base.
Yeah.
So let's get your chief compliance officers from financial institutions, the right list of folks.
Right people in front of these people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get them here. And these were workshop tables. So what was great about this is, first of all, it's peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
You're letting, 4 executives that are in-house bounce ideas off each other and giving that partner a chance to say, well, actually, right?
Using that to your advantage.
Using it to your advantage. You also built trust in a way. First of all, I mean, what the clients loved is they were like, we walked away with real friendships, right? Like now I know, like I'm at Lazard and I know I want to call him at BlackRock when I have a question because now we've built a rapport.
Well, sometimes opening up your client base to your clients is actually your value add, right? Like,
absolutely.
Which is
just helping them and bringing them together. And it let the partners shine in a way where they were able to showcase their expertise and build those relationships in a more meaningful way. Those folks also then felt comfortable calling that partner for a quick question, right? Which eventually led to real work coming in. But the other thing we did, so the next day, while it's still fresh, I came back in and I met with the partners for lunch and I said, okay, let's talk about what were the biggest issues, what were the pain points, what were the practical on the ground, non-legal problems that these folks were facing? How do we weave it in? Great. Let's now create the thought leadership calendar for the next year based on what they care about and what they told you they need.
That's a great example, and I think also something you said earlier, kind of between the lines, well, you said it out loud, but like giving an opportunity for everyone to shine. I think that's super important. And in doing it that way, they did have in their own way, have that opportunity to really be themselves and kind of shine.
They could be exactly who they were.
Are and optimize, like kind of leverage that. That's super smart. I love that.
And it was just a way better way to build those relationships and make the clients feel like I'll always go to an event like that.
Versus an awkward cocktail hour that no one takes really a
totally
lot out of, right? Yeah.
And they learned more than some lecture style thing with then, okay, now let's just stand around drinking.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's great. I think the right amount of structure it's a tough balance to find, but I think that sounds really
so that was a really
impactful.
Fun one.
Thanks for sharing that. It sounds super impactful.
Well, hopefully your listeners can see
and how to do that.
How to reverse engineer something like that, right? You start with what they're good at. You think about what the clients need and you fill it in between.
Yeah. No, I love that.
But that's like the programs I love creating.
Sounds super fun too, which...
it's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
So one last question. I could talk forever with you, as you know, so we're going to have tons of follow-ups.
I know.
But one question for you before we leave today. If you were to tell your younger self something, let's say 10 years ago or 12, 13 years ago, like what would you tell yourself that you now have understood and learned? It could be more than one thing.
Yeah. I think for me, I spent a lot of time in larger enterprise firms being frustrated by them being who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would have maybe told myself, this is a hard one because I've thought, should I have realized earlier I was built for going out on my own? But Rebecca, at the same time, I mean, one of the reasons firms come to me is I've had a certain background and experience having done this in those firms. And so
maybe you would have just been less frustrated about it.
Yeah. Maybe I could have though channeled a little more. I don't know. I don't even know if I can channel patience. Patience is a virtue, but it's not mine.
Maybe just knowing it sometimes helps, I guess.
Yes. Maybe being more aware that it's just what it is. I think also I started learning later. I wish I had learned earlier. I don't want to say just do what you want anyway.
Shireen's gone rogue. Yeah.
But a little like
a little bit.
It's okay to maybe, okay, I'm just going to start a pilot program over here on the side. You tell me when you're ready to approve.
There's a lot to that. Yeah. So maybe a little bit more.
Do some little testing.
Do some little things. Try things out.
Right. I learned that later. That just it's okay. While you're waiting for approval, start playing around.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I think that's a really good one too.
Yeah,
for sure. I can relate to that also. I think sometimes just experimenting with things is very empowering too for people to, you don't have to be necessarily in that box.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It was really, really great. Thanks so much for our listeners for being with us today. Don't forget to subscribe and look out for the next episode coming somewhere soon for So Many Questions. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of So Many Questions, where curiosity meets leadership. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a colleague and subscribe to and rate So Many Questions on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. To learn more about host Rebecca Goodman-Stephens or law firm Moses Singer, visit mosessinger.com. Join us for a new episode when Rebecca sits down with another bold thinker and thought leader to explore what motivates and drives their leadership style and decisions. Until next time, stay curious.